It's time to break down the Buffalo Bills' Week 16 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Wednesday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. Well, folks, the Bills have a game to play here on Saturday. Let's get ready for it. The Buffalo Bills are on the road in Week 16 for a date with the Chicago Bears. The game will be played on Saturday, December 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. The game will be broadcasted on CBS. Greg Gumbel is on the play-by-play. Adam Archuleta is the game analyst. And A.J. Ross is the sideline reporter. This will be the 14th all-time meeting between the Bears and the Bills. And that always bothers me. I think the Bills and every team should play more cross-conference games. The Bills and Bears have been in the NFL since 1970, and this is only going to be the 14th time these two teams have played each other. So I like all the cross-conference games, but sorry for that mini rant there, but I always get annoyed. It's like the Bills and the Dolphins have played 158 times, and then the Bills and the Bears have played 14 times. Come on now. The Bills have a 5-8 all-time record against the Bears. The last time these two teams played was back in September of 2018. The Bears won that game 41-9. Nathan Peterman was the quarterback that day for the Buffalo Bills. He was 31 of 49 for 188 yards with 3 interceptions, and he was sacked 4 times. He was also the team's leading rusher with 47 rushing yards. What a nightmare game that was, huh? Logan Thomas and Kelvin Benjamin both had 40 receiving yards to lead the team. Tre'Davious White had a pick. Julian Stanford had a sack. And the Bears had 2 defensive touchdowns. They scored 41 points with 190 yards of offense. I'm guessing that has to be one of the all-time games in terms of fewest yards and most points. But, hey, this is 2022. Obviously a different day and age for both teams. The Bills enter this game 11-3, as you know, the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Bears are 3-11. They've been eliminated from the playoffs. Their 3 wins came against the 49ers in Week 1, the Texans and Patriots. Their losses came twice to the Packers, Giants, Vikings, Commanders, Cowboys, Dolphins, Lions, Falcons, Jets, and Eagles. They are currently amid a 7-game losing streak. The head coach of the Chicago Bears is Matt Eberflus, 52 years old. It's his first season with the Bears as the head coach and as an NFL head coach. Previously, he was with the Indianapolis Colts as their defensive coordinator from 2018 to 2021. He was with the Cowboys as their linebackers coach from 2011 to 2017, 2009 to 2010 with the Browns as their linebackers coach, and then he really became a thing as the Missouri defensive coordinator back in the early 2000s from 2001 to 2008. So far, he's challenged 2 plays and won 1 of them. Obviously, a defensive-minded head coach that is going to come in and kind of be that CEO-type leader that the Bears need, right? Team in transition, coming out of the Matt Nagy years, coming out of the Ryan Pace years at GM, missing on the quarterback that they picked, Mitch Trubisky, number 2, a few years ago. So they're very much a team in transition. This is really year 1 of this regime. At quarterback, it's Justin Fields, 23 years old, 6'3", 230 pounds, was the number 11 overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft out of Ohio State. He started 23 games so far in the NFL. The Bears have a 5-18 record in those 23 starts. This season, he's completing 62% of his passes, 158 passing yards per game, 15 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and a passer rating of 88. Now, when you talk about Justin Fields, it's not just the passing numbers. The rushing numbers matter a ton here. He has 143 carries for exactly 1,000 yards. He's averaging 7 yards per carry this season, 8 touchdowns. This dude is the quarterback, but he's also number 7 in the NFL in rushing yards. He's averaging 4.35 yards after contact per rush. That's number 1 in the NFL among 50 players with more than 75 attempts. So that includes running backs. This guy gets the most yards after contact per rush. He's forced 36 missed tackles. That's 16th in the NFL among the 50 players with at least 75 carries. I mean, this guy is an elite athlete. 6'3", like I said, 230 pounds, runs a 4.46 40-yard dash. He's a different kind of cat. And you have to be able to be prepared for his ability to throw the ball down the field, but also a really, really good runner. He is within striking distance of setting the NFL single-season record for rushing yards. I mean, this guy racks it up on the ground. And so you have got to account for his athleticism defensively. Big-time talent running the ball, and he can throw it too. So we'll get into it, but reality here with Justin Fields is he's extremely talented. He's got all the arm talent in the world. He's got great size, great athleticism. They just don't have weapons around him. And we'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of it, but I think that's important to be mindful of as we start to get into these metrics and talk about the season that Justin Fields is having. So far in 2022, looking more in depth at his metrics, these numbers will all reflect the 38 quarterbacks in the NFL with 136 or more dropbacks. His average time to throw this season is 3.42 seconds. That's dead last in the NFL. He has the slowest trigger in the league by a lot. Lamar Jackson is number 2 at 3.11 seconds. Again, that's number 2. Number 1 is Justin Fields at 3.42. So it comes as no surprise that only on 31% of snaps does he throw the football in under 2.5 seconds. 69% of the time he holds it for over 2.5 seconds. And you guys probably hear me talk about this every single week. And usually it's, 45-55. Nope. This is 31-69, right? This is a very different type of quarterback in terms of his approach to playing the game and what this offense is asking him to do. He's holding onto the football, and from there it's throw it deep or take off. A lot like 2018 Josh Allen to an extent. When he gets the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, he's not having a lot of success. He completes a good amount of his passes, 67.5%, only 4.6 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 78.8. That's second worst in the NFL when throwing the ball in under 2.5 seconds. When holding it for more than 2.5 seconds, he completes 58% of his passes, 9.6 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 94.5. That 58.1 completion percentage, 16th in the NFL, number 1 in yards per attempt at 9.6, and number 8 in passer rating. So he's holding onto the football, and that's giving him time to really survey his options and push the ball down the field, and he's having a lot of success in that regard, but not so much when executing passes that are designed to get the ball out of his hands very quickly, which you're going to find out in a minute here is a lot of screen plays. Justin Fields' average depth of target is 9.7 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's 4th in the NFL. So, like I said, a lot of throws down the field. 17.2% of his attempts are 20 plus down the field. That's number 1 in the NFL, actually. So the average depth of target is high. The percentage of throws that are 20 plus air yards is even higher. And when he does throw the ball down the field, 20 plus yards, he's completed 14 of 47 passes for 580 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a passer rating of 87.8. So he's had some really high-level moments throwing the ball down the field. There's just not a lot of consistency there. Play action, that's a big part of what he does, as you would expect. 33.6% of dropbacks, sixth in the NFL, are play action. And the splits are pretty similar with and without play action, but I didn't want to get too far into them. But just know that it's a very frequent part of their offense. And then screens are a big part of what they do. 17.2% of his passes are screens. That's the second most frequent screen pass thrower in the NFL, just below Aaron Rodgers. So you're going to see deep passes, screen plays, and play action, and a quarterback that runs. There's just a lot to account for. The whole playbook is open with Justin Fields and what he's capable of physically. Now, look, he's obviously not a super polished player yet, but he doesn't have the talent around him to be that. So right now he's just this really gifted playmaker that's a lot to deal with. But at the end of the day, the offense just doesn't have any consistency. Very high variance player, high variance offense. Let's talk about the pressure splits here. When he's kept clean, he completes 70% of his passes, 7.2 yards per attempt, passer rating of 97.2. When he's under pressure, he only completes 44% of his passes, 8.1 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 67.4. So the completion percentage comes down 26% when he's pressured, and then his passer rating drops nearly 30 points. But the thing about that is, when I talk about him under pressure, that's when he actually throws it. A lot of times he's under pressure and he takes off and he gets a huge chunk of yards, which leads me into the blitz splits. Justin Fields is a quarterback that is killing the blitz this year. When he's not blitzed, he completes 62% of passes, 7.3 yards per attempt, passer rating of 79.3. When he is blitzed, he's still completing 62.5% of his passes, 8 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 109. So this isn't a player where you really want to send pressure at him, because he's very elusive, can make people miss, can break tackles, and make you pay for that. So you want to create organic pressure, but you have to cage rush him and stay very, very disciplined and not get yourself in a situation where you can't get him down and then he burns you. So we'll talk about that a little bit here in just a moment, but that's kind of the overall picture here with Justin Fields, a very unique player that I think has a very, very bright future. Just right now, between his own development and the people, or the players around him, it's not really conducive for him being the best version of himself. A lot like Josh Allen in 2018, in my opinion, in terms of big-time plays down the field, some crazy scrambles, but my goodness, the snap-to-snap consistency is just not there yet. So an interesting player that his career will be really fun to monitor, a player I liked a ton coming out of Ohio State. I'm really geeked about our new partner and sponsor of today's podcast, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Well, your dream can be now true, and this game is definitely for you. You can manage every aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, with all the ups and downs of a season. All of this, of course, in a challenging and realistic game through Ultimate Football GM. It is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. We actually have a league for the Locked On hosts, and we are having a blast. Locked On Bills listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find an episode from The League available as a bonus episode on Locked On NFL. Narrated by Super Bowl champion and legendary smack talker Richard Sherman and sports broadcaster and rising star Taylor Rooks, The League is an 8-part docuseries about the most bizarre, inspirational, and unlikely stories connected to America's favorite sport, which we know is pro football. You won't want to miss these untold stories spanning from the 1940s through present day. So head on over to Locked On NFL for a bonus episode of The League, or catch the full series wherever you get your podcast available now. Audible, get in the game. Let's talk a bit more about this offense that is coordinated by Luke Getsy, 38 years old. His first season as an NFL offensive coordinator, spent a bunch of time with the Packers, was there for a number of years as their quality control coach to wide receiver coach to quarterback coach to passing game coordinator from 2014 through 2021, minus one season that he spent at Mississippi State as their offensive coordinator. And of course, now he's the Bears offensive coordinator. So far this year, the Bears on offense are averaging 21 points per game. That's 19th in the league. They convert third downs 44.6% of the time. That's 7th. They score a touchdown in the red zone 58% of the time. That's 13th. 324 total yards per game. That's 23rd. 186 rushing yards per game. That's first. 137 passing yards per game. That's 32nd. So big, strong-arm quarterback that can run, is very good on third downs, pretty good in the red zone. But at the end of the day, they're number one in rushing. They're dead last in passing. So that's the book on the Bears. They can run it, but they struggle to throw it with any level of consistency. And obviously, their rushing production is heavily inflated by Justin Fields, who has 1,000 yards already. Let's talk about their personnel here. Wide receiver, this is just a mixed bag of guys that are probably wide receiver 4s for most teams. Now, Darnell Mooney has been a good player for them, but he's out for the season. He won't be available in this game. And so that leaves them with Equanimous St. Brown, who is in concussion protocol. We'll see if he can play Saturday. High variance player, has some size, has some speed, really hit or miss when it comes to production there. Chase Claypool, who they traded a second-round pick to acquire from the Steelers. He's a big-bodied guy that has some straight-line athleticism, but doesn't necessarily play to his size. Not much of a yards-after-catch guy. Just a big, physical, explosive straight-line guy. He's got a knee injury right now. We'll see what he can do on Saturday. N'Keal Harry, they traded from the Patriots. Doesn't really make any plays for them. Dante Pettis, who I think is a kind of a cerebral wide receiver 4, can help you in the return game. He's one of their options. Velus Jones, a rookie that has made a ton of mistakes this year, fumbling, dropping passes. Byron Pringle, who's been banged up, coming over from the Chiefs, hasn't really made an impact. I mean, this is just it's just a bad group. It's a bunch of guys that don't really command any volume. There's no go-to target here. And they got a lot of work to do here to get some players around Justin Fields in the passing game that he can really rely on, but this group ain't it. At running back, they got a couple of decent backs here. David Montgomery, who's in a contract year. He's been better in previous years. A lot of mixed opinions out there. I think he's a physical downhill runner, not super explosive, kind of a plotter at times. They might get Khalil Herbert back this week. He's been on injured reserve. They activated him to practice this week. I don't know if he'll be able to go on Saturday, but I think he will really elevate this team as a very shifty, elusive runner that can also catch the football really well. I think that's a player that means a lot for them in the screen game and catching the ball out of the backfield. Again, I'm not sure if he's going to be available this week. He just got activated to practice, and not sure if he can go on Saturday, but that'd be a big boost for their offense. I think he's their best running back. And then if he can't go, they're going to lean on Darrington Evans and Tristan Ebner, they're just guys. There's nothing dynamic about either player. They're your typical RB3, RB4 type guys. At tight end, Cole Kmet is their main guy. With Darnell Mooney no longer in the mix, he's the team's most frequently targeted player. Not super dynamic in terms of athleticism, but he is kind of a big body that can sit down and catch the football. So just makes himself available in zones and can catch the ball, but not a super dynamic threat that can really push the ball down the seam with size and athleticism. He's just very much a cerebral, sit in zones, catch the ball, get tackled type of tight end. Their tight end 2 is Ryan Griffin, who's been a tight end 2 in the league for a long time. A good blocker that can do very, very baseline receiving things. So just not a lot of talent around him at at these skill positions for Justin Fields to be able to maximize his ability to make plays. Their offensive line has been a little bit better this year than I thought it was going to be going in. Left tackle Braxton Jones is a rookie who has played really well. Very impressed with Braxton Jones. Small school, coming into the team here and winning that job at left tackle. And like I said, I think he's having a great year. I think they might have their long-term left tackle. At left guard, their most experienced veteran player up front, Cody Whitehair, who's been a solid player for them. He didn't practice on Tuesday with a knee injury. Not sure what the deal is there. My understanding is that he finished the entire game against the Eagles last week, so I'm not sure if he's in jeopardy or not, but he's a reasonable starter. Their center, Sam Mustipher, probably more of a backup type, but he starts for them. Their right guard is Tevin Jenkins, who's turned into an absolute stud at right guard. He's having a great year. Now, he has a neck injury. Not sure if he's going to be able to go, but if he can go, he's a high-impact run blocker that really improves this offense, and it looks like he's going to be a long-term fixture as well. If he can't go, then Michael Schofield, I think, would get the reps. He's been in the league for a while, but a below-average performer. And then at right tackle, we'll see what happens here. Riley Reif may start. Their guy has typically been Larry Borum, a second-year player who's been pretty decent this year. But last week it was Riley Reif and Alex Leatherwood actually came in for Reif, and Leatherwood got killed. So we'll see what happens here. I know they'd love to have Larry Borum available. So there's some question marks here in terms of who can go. But at the end of the day, I think this is a team that has a bright young left tackle, a serviceable starting guard in Cody Whitehair, a bright superstar in the making, I think, at right guard and Tevin Jenkins. And then who knows about this center, Sam Mustipher, like in terms of him being an answer for them for the long term. And, right tackle, if that's going to be Larry Borum, or they're going to have to piece it together with Riley Reif and Alex Leatherwood, who was dreadful on Sunday against the Eagles. So I just keep going through this, and there's just not enough here. It's just not enough here around Justin Fields. But they have like $120 million in cap space and a ton of draft picks. So they're going to be the team this offseason. That's probably going to be a lot like the Jaguars offseason that they just had, just bringing in a bunch of guys and really revamping their roster, and they're going to have the resources to do it. But that ain't going to help them on Sunday against the Bills. So what are my keys for the Bills' defense against this Bears offense? Number one, tackle. We've been through this a lot here, but we know the Bills are a very poor tackling defense, and this is not the week to be a bad tackling defense with that quarterback, Justin Fields, who's awesome at breaking tackles and creating after contact. And the offense is going to run through him. And so you better have a plan to get him on the ground. And if Khalil Herbert plays, he's a really, dynamic player in terms of elusiveness and make you miss ability. And with the weather here, it could be extremely windy. They're talking 15 to 30 mile an hour winds, a wind chill of -11. It's going to be cold and windy, which plays perfectly into the style of ball that the Bears want to play and running it. And they're opportunistic in the passing game that may take something away from their ability to really push the ball down the field. But as we talked about, the screen game is a big part of what they do. So you just got to tackle. You got to tackle these guys. Number two is invite them to beat you throwing the football. Say, go ahead, Justin Fields. We'll give you some soft shell zone coverage. And if you can pick us apart, come do it with those receivers. But I think you got to play a lot of zone this week. You need eyes in the backfield. And I think I'd be willing to play soft and invite them to throw it. See if they're willing to throw the ball against you. I don't think they will, but create those looks and make them wonder if they should. Because they haven't been a good passing offense this year, especially when it's not down the field. So zone coverage and invite them to beat you throwing the ball if they can. Number three is disciplined pass rush. You got to cage rush this man. Stay disciplined in your lanes and make sure that you're in a good position to make a tackle. You can't be playing out of control. And the Bills' defensive line has been awful, and I mean awful at tackling. And you're going to have to reinvent yourself a little bit this week and be a disciplined rush team, stay in your lanes, and don't get out of control, because you're going to give him those escape avenues to get outside the pocket and run, and that's where he picks up chunks. Number 4, I have written down, and I've put this down before in the past, and I think you guys know what I mean. Keep playing. Keep playing. There's going to be some frustrating moments in this game. There are going to be times where Justin Fields breaks multiple tackles and rips off a 20, 30, 40-yard run. Happens every week. Just play the next play. They're not a consistent team. They're a big play, opportunistic offense, but in terms of stacking together plays, not what they can do. So just keep playing and realize there's going to be some annoying moments. They're going to make some plays, but just keep playing. And then number 5 here, I have, you want to apply the principles that you've used to be effective against Lamar Jackson, the runner. I think they're stylistically completely different passers. But as a runner, I think those same principles that you've had, very much a contained rush, spying, all of those principles that have made you effective at really kind of bottling up Lamar Jackson, really the last 3 times you played him, it's time to copy-paste a lot of that. And so Shaq Lawson, Greg Rousseau, these guys are going to be instrumental in this football game, especially Boogie Basham, injured right now with a calf. Well, who knows if he can go. You know, those guys are going to play a ton of snaps on Saturday. And so the principles that have made you successful against Lamar Jackson in containing him, the runner, you got to do it against Justin Fields, who's a different cat, man. This guy breaks tackles. This guy can get out of tackles. He's a physical 230-pound, 4'4" athlete. Get ready to tackle him and be disciplined. This holiday season, find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon or the perfect gifts for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide. And all that with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Love what you find only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most states. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. B21. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears defense that is coordinated by Alan Williams, 53 years old. His first season in Chicago, he does have 2 years as an NFL defensive coordinator prior to becoming the Bears defensive coordinator. From 2018 to 2021, he was the Colts defensive backs coach. So obviously came over from Indy to Chicago with Matt Eberflus. 2014 to 2017, the Lions DB coach. 2012 to 2013, the Vikings defensive coordinator. And then 2002 to 2011, the Colts defensive backs coach. He does have a lot of familiarity with Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott. Alan Williams was on the William and Mary coaching staff with Sean McDermott in 1998. And then he was with Leslie Frazier in Minnesota as well. So a lot of familiarity here between Alan Williams, their defensive coordinator, and the Bills head coach and assistant head coach, and McDermott and Frazier. So far, this defense has been very poor. 2022, they're allowing 25.6 per game. 25.6 points per game. That's 30th in the league. 355 yards per game. That's 22nd. 143 rushing yards per game. That's 27th. 211 passing yards per game. That's 15th. They give up a third down conversions 49% of the time. That's dead last. And they give up a touchdown 64% of the time. They allow teams inside the red zone. That's 27th. So a lot of work here to do on this defense. They've traded away some of their best players, right? Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, guys that they've packaged away. So it's very young, very, very young, this group. And personnel-wise, it's not going to be a very impressive situation. So let's talk through this pretty quickly, because I think just in reality, I'm not trying to cast shade on the Bears. They're a 3-11 football team that is in a team in transition. Better days are ahead. They don't have a lot of starting caliber players on this defense. Up front at defensive tackle, Justin Jones, Armin Watts, Mike Pennell, Andrew Brown, Angelo Blackson. Those are more like third and fourth defensive tackles, not your guys that are going to, your first and second string players. So they got a bunch of snap takers, but nobody there that's really a difference maker. I guess their best player is Justin Jones, who has some flashy moments. I think he's more of on a good defense, your third defensive tackle, not your number one. On the edge, they have a couple of young players that I like in Trevis Gibson and Dom Robinson. Robinson's a rookie. Gibson is a second or third year player that have gotten a lot of opportunity now that they've moved away from Khalil Mack, right? They moved away from Robert Quinn. These guys are getting some snaps. I think they'll be better for it, but they're not very consistent playmakers. Al-Qadim Muhammad is a cerebral veteran that came over from the Colts, and then Taco Charlton, who's been a flop as a first-round pick. He gets some rotational reps there at edge as well. At linebacker, this is where things get really interesting. Like I said, Roquan Smith has been traded. Jack Sanborn has been a real bright spot for them this year. He's injured and won't be available. And so it's going to be like Matthew Adams, Nicholas Morrow, Joe Thomas. Those are LB3s. Those aren't desired starters in the league. Then at corner, they've got some talent here. Jalen Johnson, third-year player out of Utah, second-round pick, has been okay. Jalen Jones is a rookie UDFA that's been getting some run. He played a lot last week. Kyler Gordon, I believe he's a second-round pick this year out of Washington. He's been playing a lot in the slot recently. He's been really up and down. I think he'll be better for the reps, but still a very young player. Kindle Vildor, I don't know what's going on with him. He played a lot earlier in the season and then just hasn't been able to get on the field lately. I'm not sure if he'll be in the slot, but I think it's going to be Johnson and Jones outside with Kyler Gordon in the slot. Then at safety, they got a bright young player, Jaquan Brisker, rookie out of Penn State. I think he's going to be a pillar for this team. Really bright young player. And then DeAndre Houston Carson will probably be the safety next to him. Eddie Jackson, one of their core players, he's on injured reserve. So DeAndre Houston Carson, who I like a lot, I think he's a high effort player that because of injuries has gotten on the field quite a bit over the years. And I thought he's been pretty decent whenever he's been out there. But obviously he's never really been their desired starter opposite of Eddie Jackson. So with Eddie Jackson hurt and Jaquan Brisker now in the mix, Houston Carson is getting a chance to play a lot. But at the end of the day here, I mean, they got a lot of young players, very few identifiable building blocks, and a lot of work to do. And they got some really good coaching acumen here on defense that should get it figured out, but they need an infusion of talent, right? There's whatever Bill Parcells, I don't think would get much out of this group defensively. So what are my keys for the Bills on offense against this Bears defense? Again, keeping in mind the fact that this could be a windy, freezing game. You got to win the line of scrimmage. Your offensive line should be able to control this Bears front. And you should have displacement in the run game. You should have good protection in pass pro. You should be able to handle this group of defensive linemen that they can throw at you. So win the line of scrimmage. Number 2 is have a creative run scheme, which actually kind of ties into my next point, which is challenge their ability to communicate. And I'm just going to say the last thing here, and I'm going to now kind of talk a little bit more. Throw it if you can, right? Based on just how crazy the wind is. But the whole point being here is this is a young, talent-lacking defense. You have a veteran quarterback, really veterans all over your offense, a lot of established coaching acumen. I know that Ken Dorsey's a first-year play caller, but he's been in the league for a long time. There's a lot of former offensive coordinators on this staff, and Mike Shula and Aaron Cromer and Rob Boris and Joe Brady. You should really be able to come up with a plan here with an offensive line that you feel like should control this football game and put a lot of stress on them, whether it's with motion, creative run schemes, throwing the ball creatively, to stress their communication and not only just win because you're the more talented football team, but because you're able to put them in a lot of conflict with your veterans and your coaching advantage. And so, again, the wind and the cold is certainly a neutralizer that's great for Chicago. But even within that, I think you should be able to put them in a lot of conflict and, of course, control the game with your talent, whether that's in the skill positions or on the offensive line. Now, I mean, the Bears aren't going to roll over. They played Philly pretty tough last week. So you got to go out there and play a good game. But to me, there's reason to believe that you are just a more talented team with an established coaching staff that should be able to have success on Saturday. Now, the variance of Justin Fields and the big play potential there in these conditions, it gives me a level of concern. This has the makings of being a very weird game because of the variance within the team that you're playing, and then, of course, the elements on top of that. So it's just going to be a weird game. Real quick on their special teams, their kicker is Cairo Santos. He's been the Bears kicker since 2020, NFL kicker since 2014. 90% on field goals this year, but pretty poor on extra points, 24-29. 85% kicker for his career. Their punter is a rookie out of North Carolina State, 7th-round pick, Trenton Gill. I think he's been okay for a rookie, but probably through the lens of an NFL punter, below average. And then their return situation has been a challenge for them. They've wanted Velus Jones, a rookie out of Tennessee, to be an answer, but he's just made a lot of goofy mistakes. And he got a chance to be their kick returner last week against Philly. I don't think they'll put him back there, a punt returner. That's Ben Dante Pettis, who doesn't have a lot of experience as a punt returner either. But he's made less mistakes than Velus Jones. So they're pretty unsettled there. And I'm interested to see if it's Jones as a kick returner and Pettis as the punt returner. But I think this could be a situation where you may want to challenge these guys who have, they're not experienced and they've been mistake prone. So you could have some opportunities there to take advantage of what should be a strength of your team, covering kicks and punts. And, they've got inconsistent performers in the return game. So there you have it. That's my primer on the Chicago Bears. Obviously a unique opponent for the Bills, a unique team that's in transition. Better days are ahead for the Bears for sure, but a challenging opponent at this point in the season for the Bills. They can't take them lightly. They can't take them lightly at all, and nothing can be assumed, especially with, like I said, Justin Fields at quarterback and the elements that are forecasted for Saturday. So we'll continue the conversation tomorrow with Crossover Thursday. We'll chat with Lauren Cox. He's a great host for the Chicago Bears, Locked On Bears. We'll talk about the game with him on Thursday. So don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. We'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.